In the year 1500 CE, there were two cities on Earth with a population over 400,000 people. One was Beijing, the other was in India. It was called Vijayanagara, and it was more magnificent than Rome. Foreign ambassadors who visited wrote that they had never seen anything like it. Markets overflowing with silk, diamonds and spices. Temples encrusted with gold. Streets so wide that 10 horses could ride abreast. A city so wealthy that the very roads were said to be paved with commerce. 65 years later, it was gone. Deliberately destroyed, systematically erased, over 6 months. And the world forgot it ever existed. This is the story of Vijayanagara, the empire nobody taught you about. To understand why Vijayanagara existed, you need to understand the world it was born into. It is the year 1336 CE. The Deccan plateau of southern India is under enormous pressure. The Delhi Sultanate, one of the most powerful Islamic kingdoms in the medieval world, has been pushing southward for decades, raiding temple cities, demolishing Hindu cultural institutions, and extending its control across the subcontinent. Into this moment of crisis, two brothers emerge. Harihara and Bukka Raya, former commanders in the Hoysala army. Men who had seen their civilization threatened and decided here, on the banks of the Tungabhadra River, at a site considered sacred since ancient times, that they would build something that could not be broken. They founded the Vijayanagara Empire in 1336 CE. Its name means City of Victory. For the next 230 years, it would be exactly that. At its peak in the early 1500s, Vijayanagara was the second largest city on Earth. 500,000 people, 1 million square kilometers of empire. And at its heart, the capital city of Hampi, one of the most extraordinary urban environments the medieval world had ever produced. Domingo Paes, a Portuguese merchant who visited around 1520, wrote, and I am paraphrasing, that the city was as large as Rome, that its markets sold every conceivable luxury, that its streets teemed with people of every nation, that the king's palace was decorated with jewels and ivory, and that the treasury was so full that rubies were sold by the basketful in the open market. The Vitala Temple, the Hazara Rama Temple, the Virupaksha temple complex that still stands and still receives worshippers today, the royal enclosure with its throne platform decorated with carvings of horses, elephants and soldiers, the Lotus Mahal, a 2-story pavilion of extraordinary architectural refinement, and underneath all of it, a sophisticated water management system, aqueducts, canals and reservoirs that carried water across kilometers of rocky terrain to supply the city. This was not a primitive medieval kingdom. This was a metropolis. But Vijayanagara was not merely powerful. It was a deliberate act of cultural preservation. For 2 centuries, as the Deccan sultanates pressed southward, Vijayanagara stood as a shield, politically, militarily and culturally, for the traditions of South India. The Carnatic music tradition that today spans the entire subcontinent, much of its classical form was codified and performed in the courts of Vijayanagara. Bharatanatyam, the classical dance form recognized across the world as one of India's great artistic contributions, was performed and refined in the temples and courts of Vijayanagara. The Tirupati temple complex, one of the most visited pilgrimage sites on Earth today, was expanded, endowed and protected by Vijayanagara rulers. Thousands of Sanskrit manuscripts were copied, preserved and distributed from Vijayanagara's royal libraries during an era when many were being destroyed elsewhere. What you hear, what you dance, what you worship across South India today, much of it survived because of this empire. January 23, 1565. The Vijayanagara army, by most accounts one of the largest forces in medieval India, numbering perhaps 900,000 soldiers and several hundred war elephants, meets the combined forces of 5 allied Deccan sultanates on the plains near Talikota. For much of the day, the battle hangs in the balance. Then 2 Muslim commanders within the Vijayanagara army, generals who had served the empire for years, switch sides mid-battle. In the chaos that follows, the Vijayanagara king Aliya Rama Raya is captured and immediately executed. His head is raised on a spear in full view of the army. The Vijayanagara forces collapse. The battle is over. But the destruction is only beginning. For the next 6 months, the armies of the Deccan Sultanates systematically demolished the capital city. Temple after temple, palace after palace, marketplace after marketplace. The water system, the aqueducts, the reservoirs, the royal archives. A contemporary chronicle records that the smoke from the burning city was visible for 30 miles. When it was over, Vijayanagara, the greatest city in medieval South Asia, was a ruin. Today, the ruins of Vijayanagara cover 26 square kilometers of extraordinary rocky landscape along the Tungabhadra River in Karnataka. The stone chariot of the Vitala temple, one of the most photographed monuments in India, still stands. The musical pillars that produce distinct notes when struck still sing. The Virupaksha temple still functions as an active place of worship after 7 centuries. In 1986, UNESCO designated Hampi a World Heritage Site, recognizing it as one of the most significant archaeological landscapes on Earth. And yet most people who visit India have never heard of it. Hampi receives fewer than 500,000 visitors per year. The Taj Mahal receives 8 million. An empire that was once the second largest city on Earth, reduced to a footnote. Here is an uncomfortable question. Why does almost nobody know about Vijayanagara? The answer is not complicated, but it is important. Much of the historical narrative of medieval India was written under and after the Mughal period, and later systematized under British colonial administration. The Mughal Empire, which followed and in many ways built upon the world that Vijayanagara had shaped, received enormous historical attention. Its monuments, its emperors, and its administrative legacy became the central story of medieval India in textbooks across the world. Vijayanagara, the Hindu empire that had resisted, endured, and been destroyed before the Mughals consolidated power, was given a footnote. The Taj Mahal tells one story of India. Hampi tells another. Both are true, both matter, and both deserve to be known. Vijayanagara was destroyed, but what it protected was not. Every classical Carnatic music performance happening right now, in Chennai, in Bengaluru, in concert halls across the world, carries the DNA of what Vijayanagara preserved. Every Bharatanatyam dancer performing tonight is the living continuation of a tradition that survived because an empire decided to protect it. The 68,000 pilgrims who visit Tirupati every single day are visiting a temple that Vijayanagara made great. The stones of Hampi are silent, but the culture they protected is not. It is alive. It is performing. It is worshipping. It is teaching. Vijayanagara did not disappear. It transformed into everything that makes South Indian civilization what it is today. History is written by those who survive the longest, not always by those who achieved the most. The Vijayanagara Empire lasted 230 years. It was the wealthiest state in medieval Asia. It preserved the cultural foundations of an entire civilization. And it was so completely destroyed that for centuries, the world moved on as if it had never existed. Until the stones of Hampi spoke. And now you know. What was the greatest medieval empire you had never heard of, until today? Tell me in the comments, and share this video with one person who loves Indian history. Because Vijayanagara deserves to be remembered.